I have a question for our native community regarding this vocal that I recorded. And my question is this. Is this unknown forest giant speaking in a language that is familiar to you? This was recorded around 7 a.m. on July the 19th of 2021 in the middle of the Chequamegon National Forest in northern Wisconsin. The recorder was left unattended overnight at the location you are looking at here. The location was roughly a 20-minute drive from the Lucoutere Reservation, although Ojibwa would be my prime suspect for the language given its proximity to the reservation. I wouldn't rule anything out. We have no idea how far these things can travel, so any and all native languages should be considered. We shouldn't expect the language to be an exact match either. It might be similar in some aspects, but not exact. But heck, it might be exact too, so we don't know. After much analysis, I believe the utterances are close to, but in no way an exact estimate to, maybe a hi, hey, woo, ya. The only consonant I can for sure make out is the W in woo. Other than that, it's dealer's choice. It could be I, a, woo, ya, or I, nay, woo, na. Well, you get the idea. Once we've got those clues organized and their limitations understood, the next most important thing to consider when trying to understand what it is saying is the context. What was going on in the immediate area during and leading up to this four-syllable utterance? What follows is my attempt to set the scene for you as best I can, so that maybe we can get a clue as to what it's saying. Some of this is going to be very unscientific, in that I will be giving my impression of how the situational context might have affected me if I was a hairy giant that just wanted to be left alone. These annoying squawks are from juvenile ravens. I hear these all the time in my recordings. From the time the squawking starts to the vocalization in question is exactly 1 minute and 44 seconds. Now I know from past experience that these unknown forest beings don't like loud annoying sounds. They are much more likely to make a loud vocal knock of their own or a whistle when there are loud sounds about. So when I first listened to this, my first impression was, hey you loud obnoxious ravens, shut the bleep up. I'm trying to get some sleep over here. The second thing I want to point out, and in my opinion is by far the most likely factor that led to the vocalization, is this distant, human-like sounding voice heard here. About a minute before the unknown vocal happens, we can hear the human voice calling out in the distance. I believe this to be a bear hunter going through his morning ritual, where he runs his dogs until they tree a bear. As someone who regularly records sounds of the woods of northern Wisconsin, I can tell you that these hunters rarely take a morning off from doing this, all summer long. Even though it's not bear season, they still have to run their dogs almost every morning. They use multiple vehicles with CB radios, multiple dogs with GPS collars. Serious and dedicated year-round hobbyists. These people know these trails and fire lanes better than anyone. Knowing this location, I even have a pretty good idea of what the names of the dogs are that he is calling out to. You can hear the dogs bay out a couple of times later in the recording. Now that you've got all that to chew on, let me throw this gigantic mind bender into the equation. Knowing that these hunters run their dogs religiously every morning in what could be the most sophisticated and effective hunting system on the planet, where humans and dogs work together like a well-oiled machine, multiple trucks all incommunicado with one another via CB radio, GPS-collared dogs that have been bred for bear hunting through countless generations, GPS map trails, bait stations, you name it. These people spare no advantage. It's really something to behold when you think about it. Why on earth would these unknown forest giants want to stay in this area, knowing full well that every morning these exercises will take place? And yes, I have piles and piles of audio evidence that supports the notion that these things aren't going anywhere. I have an idea about this, and it might lead to a clue as to what's being said in the utterance. I believe their reluctance to leave the area might be because they want to hone their tactical skills. And what better situation to do so than around bear hunters that run their teams every morning? If we are their most likely enemy in their minds, and they want to be prepared for any eventuality that could possibly threaten them, is this a verbal command that has some tactical significance of some sort? Are they playing war games with these bear hunting teams as they play war games on these bears? Taking all of that into consideration, how certain can we be that those bear hounds are familiar with these beings? Are these unknown forest beings desensitizing these dogs to their presence? Perhaps even befriending them, giving them treats? How much of an advantage would that be for these beings if they felt threatened by these bear hunters? I would never want to personally reach out to one of these hunters to suggest to put a camera on one of these dog collars as they go about their morning rituals. People up here are of the fierce, no-nonsense type. I would be laughed out of the community if I did such a thing, even if the hunter was in the know about these beings. And especially if the hunter was in the know, actually. I have kept my YouTube identity separate from my daily life in this community, and I'll fight to keep it that way. But wow, would I like to get a video collar on one of these dogs. The location where this was recorded was near a trail. It was in and amongst mixed hardwoods, with no water for miles in any direction. I do not know which compass direction the hunter was in relation to our unknown, or to the recorder. And there was a 100-acre conifer replant that I'd estimate to be about 20 years old just to the north of the trail. Other than that, though, it was mostly mixed hardwoods, with no access up that way for miles and miles. So there is considerable wilderness back beyond this area where bear hunters cannot access, yet I still get good audio of these beings near these hunting routes. I do not sample the wilder places deeper in that I'm referring to, but I have absolutely no doubt that these beings would be back in there too. Perhaps the family units are deeper in, whereas the warriors might be honing their skills on the borders. Again, like I said before, these are just impressions.